The Æsir were busy having a feast to celebrate how smart they were. Skadi rather spoiled the ceremony by stomping in. Skadi was Thjazi's daughter and a fierce fighter. As a giantess, she symbolized mountains, ice and snow. She was very unhappy about her father's dishonorable death, and she was intent on making the gods pay for their crimes. "I have come for blood money," she said, "and for revenge. You killed my father. I shall kill one of you as payment." Don't be like that," said Odin. "Why don't we solve this like civilized people?" "You murdered and burned him," she growled. "I shall never laugh again. My life will only be sorrow." "What about a deal?" said the old father. He motioned for Skadi to sit and take a drink. "What if we give you a husband in compensation for the loss of your father, and we make you laugh again?" Skadi considered this a good deal. A husband might seem a strange trade for a father, but from Skadi's point of view, it was a man to do the heavy work, and a life for a life was a good trade. You have to remember morality and compensation were very different at the time. A good example for this is Egil's saga. In it, very early on, his father Skallagrim kills one of Egil's friends in a fit of rage, one of the problems about having a berserker dad. Later on in the saga, Egil, 6 years old, takes an axe and bashes it through the brains of his father's best friend. He kills him at a dinner in front of everyone. Instead of being horrified, the guests have to admit it's only fair. Skallagrim killed his son's friend, Egil killed his. One all round. So, yes, gaining a husband in exchange for a father seems a very reasonable deal in comparison. Also, Skadi didn't believe the Æsir would succeed in making her laugh, so she sat down with them and enjoyed a nice drink and a meal. She said she wanted to marry Baldr, the golden boy, the most beautiful of the Æsir. Baldr was to women what Freyr was to men. Everyone wanted him. He wasn't the god of anything in particular. He was Odin and Frigg's son, which is rare enough to be noted, as most of Odin's children he had out of wedlock, with lady giants or sometimes even humans. But Baldr is major in that his death is what precipitates Ragnarök. He's the symbol of hope and purity, and once he's dead, the end of times is unavoidable. So you can understand why Odin was reluctant to give away his best son, especially as Baldr was already married to Nanna. Nanna is an interesting goddess. Before Baldr's death, she represents joy, and after his death, she becomes a symbol of grief. Right now, she was a symbol of, "Don't you dare nick my husband." Odin said that Skadi would be allowed to choose her husband, but on one criterion only: his feet. He got all of the gods to sit in a line with a board hiding their faces and their feet poking out underneath it. It seemed as good a way to choose as any, and hopefully she wouldn't find Baldr. This reality show was fun, so Skadi played along with it. She passed the board, examining the feet, trying to guess who Baldr was. She spotted lovely feet with blonde curly hairs and white nails. She decided such lovely feet must belong to a lovely man, and if Baldr was clean of beard, he was probably clean of foot. She pointed and said, "Him!" To her disappointment, it turned out to be Njord. Njord is a Vanir, and he was Freyr and Frey's father from a previous marriage. He is a god of the sea, where Ægir is the god of wild waves and the men who die in the high waters. Njord is the god of fishermen and the coasts. Njord represents the sea tamed by man, where Ægir is the sea in its most fierce incarnation. The Jotun often represent the untamed, uncontrolled version of the elements. The Vanir, on the other hand, are often linked to fertility and bounty, so Njord is the god to pray to if you want fishes in your net. Why did Skadi mistake Njord for Baldr? Now, this is apparently common knowledge if you live in Iceland in the 11th century, but fishermen always have the cleanest feet, because they're rinsed by the seawater all day long, so their hairs and nails are bleached white. Skadi was very annoyed at not getting the right god for herself. "You'll never make me laugh," she said, "especially now I'm angry." The Æsir tried all their best jokes on her, but the Æsir have a terrible sense of humour. Thor made puns around the names of Jotun he'd killed. Skadi didn't even crack a smile. They tried juggling, dancing, magic tricks. Nothing worked. Loki watched all of this, a smug smile on his face. When Odin saw him smirking at their efforts, he grumbled, "You make her laugh if you're so smart." Loki nodded. Loki, of course, had a Jotun's sense of humour. He knew what would work on Skadi. He went and found a goat. Just as there was a lull in the conversation in the main hall, Loki came bursting through the front doors, a very personal part of himself tied to the goat's goatee. The goat bleated and tugged at its side of the rope, and Loki bleated and tugged at his side. The Aesir couldn't get over how crass this was to show a young woman who was grieving. They looked in shocked horror as Loki, howling as loudly as the goat, crashed into Skafi's lap. In the brief, stupefied silence, they heard a sound they weren't expecting to hear anymore. A light laugh. Skadi thought the goat rope trick was a hoot, and once she'd started she couldn't stop herself, giggling hysterically. So yes, the Jotun's sense of humour. Maybe Thor's puns weren't so bad after all. Thor, feeling he'd been cheated of his moment of glory here, decided to do something to impress the girl. He threw Thjazi's eyes into the sky, where they became stars. Skadi found it very pleasing, and she said she would forgive the Aesir. There are some versions of this story in which it's Odin, not Thor, who throws Thjazi's eyes into the ether. However it happened, Thjazi's remains became stars, and Skadi decided to accept the god's deal. So Skadi had to marry Njord. She did, and they tried to live together. Njord brought her to the seashore, but Skadi hated the salt water and the wind which messed with her hair. She found the overpowering humidity disgusting, and the sound of seagulls squawking woke her up in the morning. She asked Njord to come and live with her instead. So they moved to the snowy mountains of the east. But Njord found it too cold, and he missed the sound of the waves, and the howl of wolves kept him awake at night. They tried spending 9 nights in Njord's hall and 9 nights in the mountains, but that also failed. In the end, they decided to divorce, which the law allowed them to do. Icelandic customary law put clash of personalities as an acceptable reason to leave your spouse. So, although all of this started because Loki was hungry, it ended with a death, a wedding, and a divorce. A good story, all things considered, to keep you warm during the long winter nights. Hi everyone! If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like or subscribe, every little bit helps. Also, if there are any particular myths you'd like me to cover, just say so in the comments, and I'll try to do them next. In a fortnight we'll be on to Kvasir's blood, the story of how the mead of poetry was made. Yes, because poetry is a drink, obviously. See you soon!